It's okay. So I feel as women, we are always told to speak softly, right? So that is inbuilt in us that we normally in every meeting we speak softly. But as men, they are much more bolder in terms when they speak, right? So whenever I'm in during my meetings, I find myself talking softly, even if I'm raising my opinions, it's always on in softer tones. So at times, if I am placing my opinions and over the top, if some other person, next person is saying the same thing, he's heard, but I'm not. So sometimes I feel that, okay, what is it that I did wrong, or what is it that I did wrong? So I do try to ask those with my to my team members, but nothing really comes up. So this is definitely not consciously that they do. I'd like to put that out. It is not consciously because I know whosoever I've worked with or working with, they do know, they do understand what we are here for. But it is subconsciously that it gets under it. So maybe what I have, how did I handle it is, even though I'm not heard, I try to voice out my opinions. That would definitely, we should not back out on that. That it has happened once, but if number of people have not heard me, maybe some other number of people have listen to what I said. So someday or the other that will break, hoping that that will break. And what did I learn from that experience is, one thing that I try to do is, if I have other women in my team or I'm working with, I try to listen to them. And even if they are, if somebody, let's say, is interrupting as well, I try to tell the others that, let's hear that person out and then we can. And this is again not specific to females only. This is my opinion, and that is why I said females. But even I think there would be times where men are also not heard if it is women only team sometimes, right? So maybe be more attentive subconsciously, also try to listen to what other person is saying. So I try to share this with my teammates as well, and that's my learning. Moving on, so we have another question, which is, early in your career or even today, have you ever hesitated to negotiate for yourself, whether for a promotion, funding, or leadership role? What changed for you, and how do you now mentor or support other women in advocating for themselves? Karishma, would you like to answer that?
Okay. Thanks. So not early on, actually, I have been struggling with this hesitation for a very long time, though it has improved a lot over the years. I have hesitated for just about anything and everything. It's promotion, switching jobs, appraisals, self-assessment, uh, leadership, and networking, self-advocacy. So it's obviously going to be there if I'm hesitating in all of those things. So the biggest change that occurred was I realized that if I'm going to reject myself, then who is going to believe in me and advocate for me? So that is what helped me start changing things for me. But in order to reach that point, I realized over the years that I was talking to uh, a lot of people, including men, who used to share how they struggled with some of the things, like they had to fight for certain things or ask for certain things. And that got me thinking that it's uh, stereotypes, prejudices, and affinity towards certain things or people is always going to be there. It's just that it so happens that this is more with women rather than men. So that is the first time that I thought that I should start speaking up for myself. Um, and I've also realized that we have made a lot of changes in all these years. Earlier, there were barely any posh policies or implementation of posh policies. International Women's Day was more about just wishing each other or dressing up and clicking good pictures and uploading them on social media rather than having any discussions. And the third thing I realized was, why does this happen with women? I think, like Neha said, that somehow your environment teaches you that you have to be very soft and a lot of other things basically, and you pick up on those even if you're not told this explicitly. You pick it up based on your surroundings, and that is how your personality ends up molding into. And then the way, not with everybody, but with few people, the way you are given feedbacks, whether they are vague or the timing of it, what is the agenda of giving that feedback, whether you are given any opportunities or not, all of these also add up to probably the self-doubt that most women might be carrying around, that am I good enough? And then the woman can likely fall into the trap of, oh, I'm not good enough, I have to learn this, I have to do this, I have to prove myself. Like Indra Nui also says, for women it's more uh, a steep slippery slope, uh, not just in corporate but everywhere. It's changing a lot, but uh, that is what uh, I think that women should do, that they should trust in themselves and not reject, not be harsh on themselves. If you start being kind on yourself, then you'll start being kind on others and you'll start making progress. It starts with you first, is what I think.
Thanks, Karishma. And I definitely agree with you. If not we, as in, if not I, then who else would stand up for me, right? Mukta, do you have anything else to share on this?
This was so lovely, actually. I actually resonate with both you.
Yeah, who's calling?
So with Neha and Karishma both, like I think all both of you all made such great points that we the problem about being soft spoken and not being heard in the room because you have people with stronger voice is a problem that even I face. And I have got this feedback in one of my leadership discussions where my the CEO that I was reporting to, he said, Mukta, you come out as a very soft spoken girl, but you need to come out as a very strong woman if you have to handle the leadership positions. And I was like, hey, do I really need to do that? And then all the thoughts that Karishma said, do I really need to do that? Do I really have to come out as a strong person? And am I a strong person? Do I believe in yourself? So all of these things really are amazing and very well put. Thanks.
Thanks, Mukta, for sharing your thoughts.
I have a couple of thoughts on this. So, a huge plus one to everyone, and it's a very valid question. All of us have gone through it, and every woman leader or every aspiring leader I've spoken to have gone through this imposter syndrome, as they call it, that you're always second guessing yourself. Am I good enough? Am I good enough? You may be the best, your performance may be the best, but you keep asking that. And this whole thing of being this soft spoken and nice, this stems from the fact that traditionally leadership roles were held by women, and a boss was supposed to be very assertive and loud, and he has to stand up, and whether it's in looks or whether it is in the way they behave with people, that is a stereotype what is there in all our minds. So with the women who are soft spoken, who like to do things gently and don't yell and scream and just get things done, they are looked upon as as weak leaders, so as to say. And that's not correct. You don't have to shout and scream to be a good leader or in the room, and you can still make your voice heard, right? So I think as women leaders, now that we have in a position where we can mentor other younger women and leaders who have come up, one of the important things to do is to coach or mentor people to be assertive. It's important. You don't have to be loud, but you have to be assertive. You have to make your point across. You have to call out if you don't agree with something in the room, even though you may be the only person thinking in that manner, voice your opinion out. And pushing people to talk is very important. So when I have my meetings and I have all the women, I specifically pick everyone's names, put them on the spot and say, what do you think? What is your thought? Do you think this will work? People people hesitate. There's a lot of hesitation. And that also comes from the upbringing, society. It's a, there are too many things into it. It is not just the work environment that plays into this, right? So I think encouraging people, and even if there are women leaders who are like maybe 70% ready to take up the role, it's important for the organization to give the necessary support and give them that space to grow and the confidence to grow into a leader. We don't have to wait for somebody to be 100% there to be there. You can be aspiring leaders as well. So I do think, all of us who have now gone through this whole journey have a role to play in, helping the other folks to grow up, I mean, into aspiring leaders to grow into good leaders.
Thank you. Thank you, Savita, for putting in your thoughts. We'll move on to the next question. So we often hear that women leave tech due to work-life balance issues. But is that truly the case? Have you ever had a moment where you or a talented woman in your team considered leaving the industry? What was the real reason, and how can organizations prevent this from happening? Mukhtar, do you want to take that up?
So yeah, actually, this you spoke about this work-life balance, and I have this question: is there even a balance there? So, is there anything called as balance? Uh, I think I've heard someone in one of the talks. There was a lady who said that you can have everything in life, but not at the same time. So that is the trick to getting your work done. So now, getting past your challenges. Uh, Typically, what I have seen, or I think most of us over here have, about 20 years of experience in the industry. So we grew up, while we were being taught as, you're going to grow up to become a good wife and good mother, talk softly, walk like a woman, eat like a woman, and then learn to cook. So these were the stereotypes that we grew up with. But in the last 20 years, there has been a significant change. And for that change, one thing that has been really important is the external support. So, as an example, today, if today I call myself that I'm really doing well in my career, I see that there are a lot of people around me applauding my husband because he has been my support. So when I grew up, I was like, okay, after my wedding, I'll have to leave my job and sit at home. Or after having my first kid, I have to leave my job and sit at home. After my second kid, now everybody sits at home. Who works? Who's the woman that I saw around who had two kids and was sitting at home? But at that, and I think this is the exact question that Neha is asking. How do you actually get past this? Like, uh, your family, your personal life, and your career. How do you balance it all? And is that the reason that women quit in between? Well, hell yes, actually, there is a lot of things that's happening, and a lot of things that I think even Karishma touched upon. There are a lot of battles that we are fighting within ourselves. As a woman, I am supposed to, for example, today my cook has not come and I need to cook, but I'll have to do that after this meeting is ready. So maybe I'll need to order. But is there someone at home who can manage it? Just order it via Swiggy. The responsibility of having something on the plate is still on me today. Well, and then these are the pressures. Okay, I'm responsible for getting food on the plate either by, ordering via Swiggy or cooking at home. And I'm also responsible for running a startup back. And how do I manage both responsibilities? Now, this is the challenge that we're stuck in. And this is the part where women leave their jobs in between. So you might see a lot of women, in the industry who are about, 5, 6 years experience. And then all of this becomes overwhelming and then they leave their jobs. Now, who are the ones who survive? They are the ones who have support. And who's the support? You need not always sit and say, hey, I need support from my parents, from my husband, you can actually go out and, this kind of meetings where there are women supporting each other. You have your friends and you build a network where you have a mental support, you have a physical support, you figure out what you want to do. And so this is where you have to build your network and support system. Second thing is, we women are very hard on ourselves. Okay, I think when, like Karishma or someone touched upon that point, we have very high expectations of, getting things done perfectly. Sometimes it's okay, it's okay when you delegate it to your husband or your kids or your friends and they don't do it well. It's okay if things are not perfect. Uh, Now, this is where the challenge starts. Given a problem where classic situation, very important delivery at work, and your kid is ill, and the cook is on leave, and your husband has an important delivery at work. So now, what is it that you're going to give up? Now, these are the challenges that you have to sail through. Most of the times, when there are happy times, things are good. But during those challenges, don't give up, actually. The other thing is, I've spoken to a lot of women. As you know, I've never had a career break in my entire 21 years experience. Um, but some of the women, like around 5 to 8 years experience, they come and say, you know what? I'm wondering whether to have a kid now, because after that, I'm expecting a promotion. And if I have a kid, I'll not be able to get a promotion. Well, is that really a case? Okay, it's okay. Now, this is where, how do you make this decision? It's a mixture of personal choice, your age. Do you want to have a kid early? Do you want to have late? There is nothing like getting married, having kids, and not having a promotion. They are not linked together. Keep them separate. Have your priorities sorted. It's a very difficult problem, but you've got to it out. And in all of this, one of the things that we women don't do is we don't go and talk about it. We don't ask. We don't ask for help, because if today I am considered that I'm supposed to, have food on the table, just say no, sorry, let's share responsibilities. If you love, I love being actually responsible on the kitchen. I like, hey, I am the boss of the kitchen here. Everything will happen via me. So I have taken that additional responsibility. I cannot blame it on others. But to get past it, whatever it is, just go out, ask for that help. I think people around us are understanding. You just have to talk. Go out, step out, and talk to the people that it's not working for me. So, yeah, be assertive, ask for help. These are the things you need to have. So I strongly believe in all these 20 or whatever, these lots of years I've seen, more than 40 years, I've seen things work. There are a lot of men on this group. There are a lot of women around us who want to support. They just don't know how. And you have to ask, and they will support. But it's a battle that you have to fight internally as well. So it's an internal battle which you have to fight and get across. And that's how you will set an example for others out there. I hope I answered your question, Neha.
Yeah, you're right. And I completely agree to everything you said. And as Ankita rightly said, I think there's no glory in being superwoman. You have to, as women, we have to understand that delegation sometimes is okay. You cannot do everything. We have two hands, even though, our goddesses are shown with six and more, but we are not, we're humans. So we cannot do everything. Okay. Since we are running out of time, I'll quickly move on to the next question, which is, despite efforts to increase diversity, many recruiters still struggle to hire women in tech, citing a limited talent pool, while many qualified women in tech face biases in hiring. From your experience, what are the real barriers, unconscious bias, hiring processes, or systematic challenges that make it harder for women to get hired in tech? And what concrete steps can organizations take to change this? Savita, do you want to take that up?
Yeah, sure. So this is a problem I've been battling for 20 plus years. So it's a everyday problem. There's one hand we want to hire women, on the other hand we don't find enough women, and then there are enough women who are good qualified but not working. So I just think that you cannot just hire more women in organization by looking at the available pool. It's very important to go behind and look for people who are also left the workforce, because there's a significant number of people who fall off the grid after the first 4 or 5 years of their career. It can be because of childcare, it can be family or parental care, because women traditionally are the primary caregivers in whatever form, right? Whether it's for kids or whether it's for their parents or family. And then there's, of course, trailing spouses. It's very common that people leave the jobs when their husbands get transferred somewhere else and then they leave the job. So it's very important to tap into that pool. And I'm glad that there are a lot of organizations that have taken a step of bringing women back to work, where you actually go out and find people who have taken a break, bring them in, make them go. A lot of companies have different ways of hiring. Some people hire them, put them through an internship, and then give them a full-time job. Sometimes some organizations also train them, give them a put them through some boot camps of 1 or 5 or 6 weeks, and then take them into the workforce. So looking at alternate ways of finding women is very important. And then we also see that a lot of women hesitate to take up, say, a serious tech, like a coding job, for example. People think that, by the time it's very hard and have to keep up, have to keep learning continuously. And then so it's better that I take up something a little relatively easier. Maybe like I can become project manager, or I move into something similar in software development, but not actually which is highly technical in nature. So these are some of the thoughts that people have, and then we need to systematically, help in breaking these barriers what are there in people's mind. So while we have to go and intentionally hire women in all the roles, not just as in the freshers or in the early talent, but also for seniors. It's important to go and bring women and train them and bring women back to workforce. That is extremely important. And also women in your own organizations who have taken a break for various reasons, right? See how you can support them to come back into the organization, come back into the workforce. Those are some of the steps that we need to take, but it has to also be driven from top to bottom. It should not be just like, oh, I want to show my score in my GPTW that it's a great place for women to work, or I have 50% women in my workforce. It should not become like a tick box. And in many places, it does become one if you're not careful. So being assertive and saying that even for women leadership, right? First, when you have any leadership roles that are open, the first 1 month, you intentionally put all your efforts to find a women leader, and then you go out to the pool and find other people if you don't find one. So those are important. And of course, developing your own, growing your own people within the organization to take up leadership roles is also very important, because we find very few women in leadership these days, especially in the tech field. Yeah, that's
Definitely. So, and I hope that given platforms or opportunity, women can try by delegating as well, but try and not give up so early given the leadership roles. Because I know it does take a lot from you when you're a leader, but hoping that we get more support with the team and, not give up
right.
so early.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Moving on. So the next question is, many organizations have gender inclusion initiatives, but real change happens when male leaders become true allies. Can you share an experience where a male leader or colleague actively championed your growth? What did they do right? And how can more men step up in meaningful ways? Sonali, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I think I had been very fortunate to have male allies who had recognized my strengths. They had advocated my growth, and they had also ensured that my contributions were valued. However, what I feel is what enabled their support was also my own drive, my own adaptability, and the ability to demonstrate the impact, right, in every role that I took on. Um, this 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 topic that you're talking about, I think it resonates a little bit with what Professor Sandeep mentioned in the beginning of the call as well. So coming on to, I'll share a couple of my experiences. Was early on in my career, one of the key moments was when I decided to transition from a QA to a delivery role, to a Scrum Master role. And at that time, I was pretty open about it to my leaders. They not only supported my move, but they also actively created opportunities for me. I think at that time there was a trust established with uh, that I would be able to navigate the shift. The leaders ensured the decision makers they took my the aspirations seriously, and they always backed me up, whether I was in the room or not. So that is, I think, one of the key things that lies on us as well, right? To have developed that level of credibility and trust, and be very open about our aspirations. And I think that opportunity that I got at that time, that gave me a lot of confidence in my own skills. That sort of validated my own belief in my capabilities. Even though I must say, though I did not succeed very well in that opportunity, but having that chance to play, to play out a different role, that at least helped me discover what else I need to improve on. So that was really a good, a good opportunity that I got, which actually led me to where I am today. Similarly, when I moved to another organization, my Singapore-based boss, he had again shown full confidence. He backed me up with my problem-solving skills and the strategic mindset that I could bring, and gave full freedom to work with my APAC teams on the agile implementation, on the scaled agile implementation, which was one of the area where I yet had to prove to myself my expertise, right? But having done that, again, helped me recognize my potential. That it built my confidence, what I need to do more, plus also that I have somewhere the potential to target the leadership roles in the industry. And I would also want to share, even today, as a director of delivery, I see a huge power in having the champions by my side, the allies on my side, my CEO, my client who trust in my, I would say, decision making or strategic execution of the deliveries, the QA process transformation. It helps. It helps me more in my everyday job. I have a woman champion, I would say, who is one of my clients, who actually connects with me offline, sometimes shouting at me, sometimes pushing me to my own boundaries, sometimes giving me great ideas how I can scale up more in their organization as a vendor, and doing more for their clients. So it's really great, and I would like to really encourage the women out there to definitely have allies, identify the champions that you can have by your side, listen to them, ask them, share your aspirations with them. It's gonna greatly help you. Coming on to the next question, the next part of the question, Neha, where you asked how men can step up. I think, obviously, apart from women developing their own skill set, showcasing them, I think men can definitely advocate for women in their leadership and decision-making roles today. They could support women who show the initiatives and capabilities, give them opportunities to lead. They could develop a culture of trusting women's skills and decision-making, whether it's in a small meeting room or, as simple as writing code. Performance-based promotions is another area where I think the leaders could ensure that the growth opportunities are driven by competence and not just by compliance as to meeting the numbers of promoting this many number of women. So, I would really want the leaders to focus more on promoting based on their competence, encouraging that. And also, I think one of the other important things is creating an inclusive space for the mentorship, sponsorship, and leadership, pushing out people to participate in that. The seniors who have already been through that journey, plus the newcomers in the industry. So that's another important thing. Yeah, I think that covers up my thoughts. Neha, is there anything else that you would like me to cover?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, you actually rightly said that we have to be more on. I mean, when we count, or when we check, we should check based on the performance or the merit, or what we call, instead of just the compliance or gender bias or anything else. It should be purely the performance that they or what they bring on the table. And also, even I have encountered a few. I mean, I would say wonderful colleagues who have actually helped me. They might not know that they've helped me actually because it was just a nudge. I remember one word. I mean, one of my colleagues, Arnav, ex-colleagues, he used to tell me, "पूछने में क्या जाता है? करने में क्या जाता है?" That is actually a small nudge because we always have that second thought, and that small nudge has helped me a lot of times. Now I ask myself, even though he's not around, I ask myself, पूछने में क्या जाएगा? you know So that's actually, I would like everyone to help them out as and when you think they are having second thoughts. And yeah, I think we are evolving. It's not everything black. We see things are changing, people are talking, we are here for a reason, right? So that means we are thinking about the change and bringing the change. So thank you, Sonali, for sharing your thoughts. Okay, so we have sorry, is someone saying anything? All right. Okay. So we have one last question, which says, if you had the power to remove one barrier for women in tech overnight, what would it be and why? Would anybody like to take that question? Maybe from the panel first and then maybe the audience. Yeah. No one?
Yeah, I have a point on this. So one barrier if you have to take is I think, the barrier of women having lower confidence, however educated and smart and brilliant they are. I think that's a big barrier for the growth of women in tech, and that is something that we should collectively work to get rid of. That whole imposter syndrome is 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 a big challenge.
I'm not sure, though. I mean, this is a very unsolved problem. I mean, I don't know the way out. It's been a couple of years where I've been working with all men colleagues around me. So this is a very difficult question, but I'm thinking that maybe having more role models, or talking about, or people seeing more mentors, having more women mentors who are in the leadership positions. And all of us, if we talk about it, then we might be able to see more, encourage more women to get into STEM and engineering and tech, and keep on updating yourself in the changing tech landscape to be more relevant, so that the women will take what it will do what it takes to get there, maybe by playing a role model.
I think one thing that could possibly be done is something which starts at home. That the family should be so supportive that you should not be in a position where you have to ask for help. The family should see and be empathetic enough to offer their help so that I can go ahead and do something which I really want to do. And this is something I've experienced even in corporate. Sometimes I have been talking to my male colleagues and just sharing. I wasn't even thinking that this is something that I need help with, or uh, that this is something I should prioritize at this point of time. But those men actually, either like Neha was saying, either just gave me that nudge, or they actually went out of their way to suggest me something and put me on that path when I was not really confident enough. They shoved me on that path. "Okay, go ahead, try it. You'll just fail if it's not going to work out. That's about it." So if that happens even at home, and it increases in the size, the number of times it happens, then maybe we'll have a more balanced society.
And definitely. Somebody is doing.
That's a lovely point. I think it's about teaching your daughters all of what you taught. So maybe we can do that.
I think somebody
I
raised that.
think,
Let us unmute it.
Yeah.
yeah, I think,
Yeah. I just wanted to share a very interesting point in this context. From my 38 years out of work, for 8 years, I was in academia. The rest was in corporate. This was Symbiosis in Pune, and I was in charge of the placements. And I recall one very specific instance that happened. There's this large, very successful conglomerate company. I won't take the name of the company. They wanted to hire an MBA for a plant role in HR. And the best candidate for that role was actually a lady, young lady, who also had type 1 diabetes. And all of the hiring managers were male. When I had the first discussion with them, they were even not willing to shortlist the CV of this young lady, saying it's a plant job, she can't do it, and so on and so forth. And over and top of that, she has type 1 diabetes. And I remember it was a very intense or at times a heated discussion with them to convince them, बात करके तो देखो. What Neha said, पूछने में क्या जाता है? बात करके देखो. You make your judgment, but don't prejudge. Give an opportunity at least for the interview. First interview happened, she aced it. Second interview happened, she aced it. Then they were neutral and they said, so, Prof, what's your advice? Now I was in a difficult situation because I had been pitching, selling her candidature from the institution. So what I told them was, look, it's your decision end of the day, but my suggestion is invest a little money, invest in a flight ticket, fly her out from Pune to your actual plant in the location where you have your plant, and have your plant people have conversations with her across, let's say, one day, not in an interview format, but conversations. Let both parties realize the value that she brings to the table, and then you make your judgment. They agreed. And it's amazing. It's now 6 or 7 years that she's working there. She's doing brilliantly. She's got promoted about, I think, 2 or 3 times in those 7 years. So I just kind of wanted to bring this example to the table that somewhere I feel that men need to challenge men to remove the thinking stereotypes that exist. Plant ka role hai, wo nahi kar payegi. Baba, give me a break. Those days are long gone, especially with the rigor of the education system that we have. And this lady, by the way, was a very strong personality, very strong-willed young lady. And at that point, she would have been like 23, 24 years old. दिखता है सामने से दिखता है you can make out in a batch of 220 the bell curve who are strong-willed, intense, able to drive people irrespective of gender and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to share this example in this context. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. And probably I'd like to also add the one thing that I feel that we should bring in change is maybe consciously being attentive and listening, not just hearing, but listening to people around you. Until and unless this thing registers in your subconscious mind, that it comes naturally to you, at least till then, so this is a long way to go. But I think just be attentive to everybody who's voicing their opinions out. Soft, not soft voice, but at least being attentive. That is the one thing that I would like to. Anybody has any other things to share? There was someone else. Sonali was talking about. Sonali,
Yeah, I think we got the points covered. I also was going to say that probably one of the ways, not a barrier, but one of the ways to target this is to start sort of a mentorship chain, each woman lifting the other woman, right? If every woman in tech is mentoring at least two women, then I do feel that that would create an exponential impact in the overall system. So, and probably, we 10 years down the line, we will not have this discussion on women in tech. It would rather be women are tech, right? They are leading, they are innovating, and going after all the leadership roles and shaping the policies.
Thank you
So,
so much. Yeah.
I have this just a question, actually. It's a question to everybody. While I also said that I've seen a lot of transformation and I think we are well empowered right now. But I have a question for everyone. Now, let's look at what's happening with the younger generation. Well, I have two boys. One of them is preparing for his engineering entrance exams. Okay, the STEM. So, engineering is preparing. So, in his class, where they have a dedicated engineering entrance preparations happening, there are 20% girls in his class, 80% are women. So, what is this women empowerment when we are providing women all the support? What has happened to what is happening right now? So, especially those who have girls or something, you can answer, or maybe, if we are talking about all of this, why aren't there 50% girls in his classes who are trying to prepare for engineering, and how do we solve for it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, Mukta, but this is another thing that I wanted to talk about when we said we want to make a change. It's about the fact that we can only look at 50% of women in workforce if there are 50% of women where education is concerned. So if there is no inflow, there's not going to be outflow. So the funnel only reduces as we go up. It's not suddenly going to increase. So maybe not a question, but it's just a thought for everybody that what are we doing at the level where our girls, our daughters need to get into that education system where they can then start picking up these roles. So maybe that is something, that's what I would have said is the change that I would want, is that what can we do to have more girls coming up into our education system? So I don't know, I really don't have an answer for your question, Mukta. I have a daughter. She chose creative arts to get into it, and she had all our support. So I didn't have to face this, but yeah, it's still a question for me as well. Like, what do we do to increase the top of the funnel?
Yeah, so one thing, the positive side of this is women have a choice today and they can choose whatever they want, and we are supporting them. The problem is they are not choosing tech. And why aren't they doing it? Is it something which is, is it something which they feel is very difficult, or is it something biologically how we are wired? I don't know. Yeah, someone was saying.
Is spreading awareness, about tech and about the opportunities in tech and about how easy it is or what it takes to be successful in tech. Basically, spreading awareness, I feel, is also a big need, because what happens is we are living in Pune. Pretty much most of us are right now. Who are in this session we are all in Pune living urban life. There is a big portion of girls out there, right? Who are not exposed to this, who are not exposed to all the what it takes to be successful in technology. Or rather, before that, the little girls, they don't even understand technology correctly, right? They have not hands-on tried with probably in their schools or in their initial educational years. So I feel spreading awareness is definitely one of the things that we can contribute to in whatever ways, wherever we can, whether it's in schools or in colleges or conducting workshops or however. Yeah.
So I think we can take more questions with
Sandeep, Professor Sandeep has
Yeah, I
started.
just wanted to add one sentence, or a couple of sentences to this discussion. We need to work harder to generate a larger catchment area of both genders. And the example that comes to mind is Accenture, which is probably the company which has the best diversity ratio in the world. I think they are somewhere at the 42, 43% level at this point in time. Their stated goal is to go to 50%. More importantly, they have a goal of 25% women leaders at a board level, which they are yet to achieve. But we need to work harder in the short term. The evangelization going to the grassroots obviously will take time. And I used to be part of the admissions team during my Symbiosis days, and we managed to nudge the ratio from about 16% to about 32% over a period of 8 years. It took us 8 years, and we would actually send out teams of students to various cities to have these kinds of interactive workshops and bring in more pools of people. Net, we need to work a lot harder to improve the hiring ratios so that at least in tech, I'm from tech, by the way, we get that kind of a balance. But the larger portion of the population is probably a grassroots up initiative that needs to be taken. So those are a few thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And actually, you said that right. I mean, I do have two friends, one who's working in Accenture and had two kids, one who left Accenture and then had a kid. And both of them, I mean, one of my friends who was not in Accenture, they said that really easy hai, Accenture has so many benefits. I'm struggling. I have to go to office and I have to leave my, 5 months old baby because we have to go to office, and she's struggling because she goes to office half day and then comes back. So I think somewhere in the team you have to understand, you have to be helpful in a way, a little more empathetic when it comes to these things, and a little more sensible and cautious when you expect also certain things, right? So yeah, not saying that work getting hampered, but then you still have to think and say, choose your words rightly. So, yeah. Do we have any more questions?
Me, I'll just like to add one very funny anecdote, if I may. So I was talking to a 16, like she's in a 10, and her father is actually HOD of AISSMS in computer engineering. And his daughter wanted to become a doctor. Like that's like from the time we knew her 8th, 9th. She said, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a doctor. And then recently I asked her, like, okay, so now you're in your 10th, what do you want to do? So she said, I think I want to go into tech. I was like, okay, this is a drastic change. She's like, being a doctor, it'll take me 15 years to actually start earning money. So I think tech is nice, no? And like in four years and like 2 years of 3 years short diploma. So then it's going to be so easy. I'll be like 22, 23, and I'll start earning that money. So I was very interesting to see that, of course, not money not being the only motivation, but people are thinking differently about tech. And I've been in tech hiring for so many years. We've seen things change. I think most of us were in college where maybe 20, 23, 24 years ago, and we know the ratio of women versus men in a classroom, right? Like it was 3 versus, I don't know, like 50, 40 boys and like 4 girls. And now things are changing. So it's very encouraging to see that with each generation, things are changing and women are taking tech a lot more seriously. And I did go as a speaker to one of these colleges, and I saw that there were more women participants. They were arranging the tech conversations. They wanted to ask so many questions, whereas the boys were a little more laid back. And I was like, oh, this is really nice. They were reaching out and saying, ma'am, how can I do this? How can I be better at cracking these interviews when people come to colleges? What can I do more? So I think the landscape is changing, but definitely, like Professor Sandeep said, we need to really work at the grassroots level.
Anything anybody else has to share or any questions?
Sorry, I'll just step in for a minute. And there, I think at the grassroots level, we're finding a lot more women coming in, especially in colleges, and we're getting more women. And to me, the bigger challenge lies in mid-management, where we lose too many women, and it's just so tragic. I've spent years in IT, and to see bright young women drop out, and largely it's the same, things. It's marriage, it's maternity, and we don't sort of get them back. And in all my talks that I give, I always say that in India, we educate our daughters for the marriage market and not for the job market. Unfortunately, they're all very well educated and we want them to have a master's degree, but we don't, it's not for a career. And that's really so unfortunate. So if we can focus on that a little bit, and that's been a lot of my time is spent on trying to see how can we keep these women, how can given the challenges that are there in mid management, given the time that and where they are in their life with their children, and how can we still keep them interested, how can we provide them that support and structure to get them over that hump so they can stay behind and we can have more women in senior leadership. Otherwise, that becomes the big leaky pipeline.
Yeah. Definitely, we need family support. I mean, in one of my, a known circle, I know someone who's a doctor, but after marriage, she was not, she stopped she did not pursue her career. And I felt, we are running out of doctors. We need more doctors. And you've done so much. I mean, it is difficult, right? Studying for doctor, and she left that, and I felt so bad that she is not able to pursue her career. But yeah, I hope that going forward, there'll be more families who will be supporting us in our career, in helping pursuing our career. So yeah,
We've got a hand raised from
Sandeep, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I seem to be coming in all the time, but I'm highly tempted to share an example of one of my former clients, Singapore General Hospital. I used to live and work in Singapore earlier. Um, Now, in a hospital, about 70% of the employees are nurses, and most nurses are ladies. Now, a hospital cannot afford to lose their trained nurses at any point in time because then their work will suffer very, very badly. So, what Singapore General Hospital did to allow ladies who got married or have young children to continue their careers, they actually went and set up multiple creches inside the hospital. They set up laundry inside the hospital. They set up food takeaway joints inside the hospital. In other words, the statement they were making is all the family support that you require, if it is not available to you as a family, we will provide it so that you can do your maternity leave and come back as soon as possible. And those creches were brilliant because they actually were populated by certain older nurses who were doing overtime who just loved children. So it wasn't a creche attendant who was looking after the children, but it was probably, let's say, a couple of elderly aunties who would care for those children as if they were their own and so on. So, in other words, they tried to recreate a family atmosphere within the workplace. And I've forgotten the actual numbers that they presented, but their attrition dropped significantly, especially in those ages, 26 to 33. Were the ages that they had talked about where they were losing the very large proportion of their workforce. So this is one example. The other is ICICI some years back actually rolled out a program to bring back ladies who had left their workforce. And they actually sliced 3, 4 job roles, put it together, made it hybrid. This is long before COVID, ICICI Bank. So I just thought a couple of examples that there are ways to skin the cat. The will, the intent, and the investment should be there. And the investment actually has an ROI because you are then not losing all of this expertise that is in the minds of the smart people that otherwise we lose. So I rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. So we are almost at the end. While I know we do want to share a lot more things, our thoughts and opinions, but unfortunately we are running short on time. So I think do we want to take a break for like 5 minutes and then come
we
back?
can. I'll just probably add a note.
Yeah.
I think it was such an honor to see Neha hosted and all of our panelists and our attendees being so involved. Like, I think we really lost track of time because all the discussions, the inputs, the examples um, that we spoke about were so close to heart, and the conversation just flowed so naturally. To be honest, this was our first virtual event, and all of us, kind of had this nervousness and like, how will it go? And, how engaging would it be because it is virtual? And I
think this was amazing. Thank you so much, Sonali, Karishma, Mukta, Savita. It was such an honor to have all of you, and Neha. Neha like was I don't know, like she had like these papers and all of that she wanted to read out from.
Yeah.
But she was such a natural. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll take a 5-minute break before we start with the next one. We're just gonna hang out here itself. Maybe just be on mute if you wanna get like a quick break, get your coffees, and super excited for the next topic as well. If there are any questions that you still wanted to be answered, please put it in the comment section and we'll get back to you one-on-one before we end for the day today. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. See you in 5.
We are at 11:40. Can I request everybody's attention, please? Normal call outs. Please put on your videos. It'll be great to see the expressions, the sharing happening. In the earlier conversation, it was amazing to see the smiles passing through, okay? And like nods and, yeah, I get it kind of thing. That is only possible if our videos are on. Please, please keep them on. It's nice to see faces and smiles. All right, without further ado, let me just get into it. So we are getting into our second conversation today, and we are here. This topic is around having bold, unfiltered conversations on how women leaders are shaping organizations today, not just as participants, but actually as the change agents that make it happen. We have a powerhouse of panelists with us today. These are all amazing women who have inspired me and continue to inspire me like so many other women around me. We have got first Sunita Shetty over here, who has got over 30 years of global corporate experience spanning IT, marketing, hospitality. She's held leadership roles in multiple organizations across countries, not just in India, across France, the US, the Middle East, before becoming an entrepreneur herself and being a leading consultant in DEIB. Through her work in various organizations, she's led impactful leadership and DEI workshops, helping organizations create more inclusive workplaces. Sunita is also a visiting faculty at Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies, where she teaches management courses for MBA students. What better than making the change at the grassroots, right? Like we were talking about, start at the education systems. Beyond a professional world, she is a voracious reader and a mature bridge player, a passionate storyteller. I can vouch for that one. An enthusiastic choir singer, and a proud mother of 2 young men and equally beloved cats. We have next with us Antara Veermani, who is the head of people in India and Middle East at ThoughtWorks, where she shapes forward-thinking HR strategies that foster trust, inclusion, and business success. With over 16 years of experience, her expertise spans across talent partnering, OD, DEI, and leadership development. A strong advocate of women's empowerment, she actively worked towards breaking barriers and enabling women to lead, grow, and thrive in their careers. Andhra is a thought leader who has spoken at various forums on topics ranging from scaling organizations amid change to the future of AI in HR. Outside of work, she's a mother of 2 spirited kids who keep her on her toes. Well, that's how they do it. An explorer at heart and someone who deeply enjoys cultural experiences. We also have Leena Karya joining us, who grew up across 2 continents, sharing her ability to adapt, question power structures, and advocate for social change. After a decade in the corporate world, including time with the Taj Group, she pivoted to grassroots social work, spending 2 years interning with rural social movements. Today, she leads India operations at Kingfish Group, a private investment and advisory firm, where she champions high-performing teams while fostering a deeply engaged and people-first culture. Lena believes organizations must create the right environment and leadership to help employees thrive. Outside of work, she finds joy in solitude, art, adventurous pursuits, meaningful conversations, music, and traveling to new destinations. And last but not the least, we have Susan Tamang joining us, who has embarked on an unexpected journey in talent acquisition and HR in 2008, only to discover a passion for solving complex hiring challenges and building thriving cultures. With a talent for making sense of chaos using data, she has played a key role in growing products, engineering, sales, and G&A teams from scratch. Susan is known for her honesty, vouch for that one, transparency, and a go-getter attitude in shaping HR policies that truly make a difference. Beyond work, she's an avid reader with a love for classics and theology, contributes to Women E magazines through her writing. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I am absolutely deeply honored to be sharing this space with all these wonderful ladies. I have known them up close and personal, and I learn from them each day. So that's our panel. Now let's dive into it straight away. The very first question I'd like to bring forth is that most organizations claim to support inclusion, but how many of these are actually ready for the change or to challenge the existing power structure and make it really happen? Inclusion shouldn't be a side project, right? It needs to be something which is a leadership priority. Can I request Susan to start off this discussion, that from your experience, what's one deeply entrenched leadership practice that must be dismantled for a real inclusion to happen today?
Yeah, I think the answer is very simple. It is mindset. I think we need to change the mindset of the management, the leadership. And we know this conversation is going around a lot on our social medias, where management generally equates number of hours with success or good work, right? And I think, and I'm speaking right now about everybody, like irrespective of their genders, where we really equate number of hours worked with, oh, this means they are doing good work. And I think that was the major thing. I had to work with a lot of C-level executives to be like, yes, they are in the office for like 18 hours, 20 hours, and then they want their core team also to be in office and visible for those 20 hours, right? So I'll give it a very quick example. So we had to hire for a chief of staff in our CEO's office. And they were very clear that we want a diversity candidate for this. And so we kept looking and we kept looking, and they're like, and the one thing that came about with all the rejection is, I don't know if they can give me the time commitment because I want them to be in the office when I come and I want them to leave when I leave. So it was really difficult. While people are ready to put that, there is a life outside of office, and it was just not working out. We finally did get a hire, but within, I think, 6 months, we used to do every quarter evaluations. The same thing kept coming up, that, oh, they're not coming into office. And I remember the CEO would come and say, okay, where is she? She's still not here. I'm here. And I had to go and mentor and coach and be like, there are priorities. Why don't you just give this person what they need to do? And then, she can do it at the time that they find it flexible and come and do that. And I think that's a more successful model. And we all have noticed this when we had to all work from home, it works. Flexibility, I think, is a number one thing that we should really give in order to allow inclusivity in the organization. So another example is when I was with Slack and we're setting up the office in India, I had to work collaboratively with the US office, and I was actually the only woman for almost 8 months in the organization. And I had everybody else who were like men. I loved it. It was like Queen Bee movement. But then diversity became like the topmost priority. And I had to like take all the people for chai and do all the things that we had to do just to get into their minds and be like, okay, now what do we need? And I realized that when I did not have this whole, oh, you need to be in the office for 8 hours, it really worked. I only worked from office for like 4 or 5 hours, went back home, took a break, and logged back in at 8 in the night to meet my team back in the US. So I realized I was actually working more hours, but we were getting a lot more done without this tight need for, or you need to be in the office. And this really translated when I was talking to the other CEOs that, look, do you really need to see the face, right? You can work async. And with everything that's happened in the work, you have your tools, which we can invest in. We do have this Teams and Slack and everything that goes on for us to make that happen. So that mindset shift that I had to bring was the hardest conversation to have. But we eventually did do that, and we were able to retain people in the organization who actually could pay attention to both as caregivers and as well as being excellent professionals in the organization. So they didn't have to really compromise on either of their responsibilities, right? So that is where I feel was something that I did and it worked, is the shift in the mindsets.
Great, and more power to you, Susan. It's not easy to have these conversations. I think equally lucky that you had a CEO who listened to you,
That's true.
which makes such a huge difference. Sunita, you have worked with a number of organizations, probably to just do this, right? Make that change happen. Would you like to share your experience with us as well?
Definitely, Devangi. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me. I want to thank all the men who are there in this audience. Thank you for logging in. We need to have a group that is diverse, so that it's not just an echo chamber. We've been through too many echo chambers for too long, and we need to be able to share what it is that we feel and we think, and be able to find solutions together. Devangi, coming back to your question about it sort of, I want to tell you, jarred with me when you said, is inclusion nice to have? That's not even I can't even imagine that being part of a conversation. Of course, inclusion needs to be there, and that's what we've spoken about so much, and we've all, I think, in our experiences know that when we feel included, and just look at yourself, right? Every time from childhood to now, every time you have felt included, you were included, right? Whether it was in the team that was playing a sport, whether you were part of the cricket team or part of the badminton team, when somebody included you, how you felt about it. When you were invited to a party, how did you feel about it, right? So we know what inclusion does and what it brings out in us. Now, in organizations, I completely agree with Susan. One is the big thing is the mindset, right? How do we get to overcome all these biases that we have that'll help us include? So apart from the mindset, the other thing that I think is tremendously important and we don't have enough of is conversation, just plain simple conversation. When we can have a conversation with something that we are uncomfortable with, then we understand a lot more, right? For men to have conversation with women and women to have conversation with men, to understand just our journeys. What is it that is bothering us? What works for us? What doesn't work for us? Right? Just having those conversations rather than take things for granted, just opens out so many things in our minds, right? And take that even further. So if you take the other spectrum of diversity, which includes transgender, which includes LGBT, which includes people with disabilities, right? It just is, we need to understand. So having those conversations becomes so important. And I'll just very quickly go through two very quick examples of my own experiences. One of it is that in the organization that my last organization, I was, in leadership, senior woman in leadership. So, of course, I'd been through the journey. I knew what women went through, but that was such a wrong mindset to go with. Because what worked for me when I was 20 and my expectations of my career and my job at 20 are not what work today and are not what women who are 20-year-olds today expect or want or should even want. Right? So it was conversations that I need to have. I need to be able to speak to women as well to be able to understand that journey. And the other example I want to give you, Devangi, is that in part of my work as DEI, I was once invited some years ago to a transgender conference, right? So it was a nationwide transgender conference in Mumbai. And there I was, and I was on a panel, right? The only heterosexual person in a panel of transgender people. And it changed so much for me, because all my life I'd grown up seeing transgender as people who begged on the street. And my own experiences in Bombay local trains, always cringing and hoping that they wouldn't come close to me. And here I was on a panel with them, right, with them talking about their dreams and aspirations and how society was treating them. And it was such an awakening for me, because here were people like you and me who had dreams like you and me. And what were we doing to them? So it's important to have conversations. It's important to have those uncomfortable conversations for us to be able to include and be part of the solution.
Yeah, I think there's so much freedom beyond those difficult conversations, and we underestimate that sometimes. And I think with just these conversations, we're probably not even scratching the surface of what needs to happen and what the change that needs to happen in this society. We're just talking about the corporate world over here, but let's look at the society overall as well. Thank you so much, Susan and Sunita, for sharing. I'd like to bring up another point over here, is that the decades of research have proved that diverse leadership leads to stronger business outcomes. Yet many organizations, like we just spoke about, still treat gender inclusion as something which is nice to have rather than a core business strategy. I'd like to actually invite Antara to respond to this. ThoughtWorks is one of those organizations which is quite forward and which has these goals of having diversity in place. Antara, would you like to share some light on this one?
Yeah, thanks, Devangi. Thank you for making me part of this powerful conversation, and thanks, Sunita, for such a great answer. I like to, Devangi, give you a long answer by by sharing experience a few years ago in a different. What happened was I was a part of a leadership meeting where we were discussing about succession planning.
Mhm.
And the conversation revolved around typically identifying high potential leaders who are critical and so on. The names were listed, and it struck me that there aren't women over there. And I did ask that, aren't we missing something here? And the response I got immediately was, oh, we have everybody that we can consider as the best people available. And I knew that wasn't true, because I definitely knew women who have been leading complex projects and navigating all sorts of client relationships, driving results and whatnot. So I did brought up a few names, and the responses were not no. Okay, they were saying, oh yeah, she's good, but she hasn't led at scale, or maybe she's still growing into her role. And I just listened, and then I asked a question. I said, we did not talk about the men on the list here to say are they fully ready? What about these questions about them? And there was an awkward silence, quietness. There was no there was no answer. So that moment cemented a bit in me sense that gender inclusion isn't about fixing women. It's about fixing how we recognize the leadership potential. And yeah, I mean, I acknowledge that women were not being overlooked because they lacked capability, because the leadership lens was unconsciously biased towards what we are always ready to see, that men can lead at the top. And so, what I think made a difference was to have a structured data criteria, a clear set of criteria, clear set of assessment standards, where we are about to it's not about giving women a handout. It's removing these invisible barriers that keep leadership look at the same things over and over. And so what I want to ask is that, it's the question's not about why women, where are the women? It's more about how do we ensure that they have equal access to the leadership. And so now coming to the long way to answer your question, I would just say that the disconnect over there was that these leaders, it's not that they didn't see the data. They were aware of the data. It was brought to them, even nudged to see, hey, aren't you seeing this? It was about they lacked accountability. They didn't feel personally responsible to say for implementing this sort of a change. I think what is stopping is again, a mindset, and also the absence of clear set of measurable goals, which are tied to the KRA, which is tied to executive compensation, which is tied to a business strategy to bring it at the forefront. And I think when inclusion becomes that, it becomes a part of key performance indicator, it becomes a business strategy, then the real change will happen. Unless then, I think it'll always remain a peripheral concern.
Yeah, so well put, right? I mean, we go around putting processes, hoping that we get the right candidates, and then we go around questioning our own processes as well, whether it's going to get us those people. Um, Sunita, again, I think you will be able to add in a little bit over here that what is that shift which is required when there are intentions? Okay, I'm going to be honest over here. Most organizations do have intentions of making this as a mainstream strategy as well, but somehow the translation doesn't really happen. What has been your perspective, or what has been your view working with these organizations or the leaders who are there in that organization?
Devangi, it's really a lot, just like Antra said. These are all very, very good men that are there, very well intentioned, many of them very, very well intentioned. But the biases come through so clearly, so clearly. There's enough of data to be able to, and now that I teach at Symbiosis, I come across all these case studies, which depresses me even more, really, to actually validate everything that sometimes I think, no, maybe it's only in my head, maybe it's only my experience, and it just validates every single one of them. But the thing is, there has to be a very, very conscious effort, and it has to come from the top. I think unless top management actually believes in something like this, it's not going to trickle down. If it's just going to be, we can set up enough of processes and there can be enough of boxes that are checked. But if there is a real change that needs to be made, I think it is constant work in progress. It's leadership that needs to have their heart in this agenda and be willing to have uncomfortable discussions, be willing to take this further, be willing to listen. Yeah. Once again, I come back to the whole process of conversation and listening, because that's the only way a change will be made. So I think a lot of it has to do with getting the intention right and then working towards it. I'm saying otherwise it's just going to remain the same. I mean, there's a wonderful book written by Iris Bonnet, who's part of Harvard, and she starts the book by talking about how there were no women in philharmonic orchestras for the longest time, till maybe a couple of decades ago, right? And what does that mean? Was it that women were not good musicians? They were all men, and it was conductors of the orchestras who would hire the musicians, right? And they actually did an entire study on it, and then they decided that let's put a curtain between the conductor and the musician, during the hiring process. Needless to say, there are women in philharmonic orchestras now. So it's sometimes it's process, it's how we're looking at something. So we need to get that in place, but we also need to be able to come together to get that agenda right, to feel that empathy, to believe in that there is this change that needs to be made, that there is something wrong. If we are only looking at all men in a succession planning, are we missing out something? Let's at least be intentional about that. And the moment you're intentional, things will start moving in the right direction.
Yeah, so well put, Sunita, that I mean, I think as far as we are being mindful of what's the problem today, only then will we be able to solve the problem that exists. Really well put. Thank you so much, Antra and Sunita, both. For years, leadership has been defined by traditional, often male-centric traits like assertiveness, competitiveness, risk-taking. But we've seen that leadership grounded in empathy and inclusion leads to much stronger engagement and better collaboration. Also innovation, right? But this is my question to Sunita, that how do we rewrite the definition of leadership to reflect today's realities?
key point today you said is today's reality, Devangi. You've touched a raw nerve here, I want to tell you.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, Sunita, but I'd love to nudge Leena as well to share her experiences with us.
Yeah. Um, I'll quickly add in, and then I'm going to let Leena take it forward. But I think there is a huge challenge in leadership today. And I think we're seeing it play out day by day as we're seeing the political scenarios change, and it's having an impact. We all know that, right? DI is a bad word at this point in time, and companies have to toe the line, right? And I can't blame them. Business has to go on. You are responsible for leadership is responsible for business, for its employees, for everything. And how do you work in an environment like this? How do you make sure you still hold strong to the values that you hold on to, and yet have to, listen to all the noise that is there around? We're at a very, very difficult point. My leaders, I think, have to really do some serious soul searching in terms of what is it that they want to bring to the table. I mean, we've spoken till, a couple of months ago, there were leaders who were swearing by DEI, and suddenly we're seeing DEI being dismantled. It's, not just dismantled, but really swinging to the other extreme. How do you come across as an honest leader? If you have said something 2 months ago and flipped completely, and yet how do you continue to hold strong to those values and carry on when you have seen the benefit of it all along? Very, very challenging times, Devangi. I'll stop here. Leena, all yours.
Leena, I mean, I do want to hear Leena, but Sunita, I am going to circle back to you because you said something which is so different from what we are discussing today. We are talking about how DIB is important and how it's at a center stage. And you just touched upon the fact that people are now getting scared of using this or talking about it. So I do want to touch upon that, but I want to hear Leena first.
Hi, Devangi, and thank you for inviting me. It's been such an interesting conversation, since we started off with the technology piece, and it's a lot of learning for me as well because I come from a slightly smaller organization, and as you've seen, Devangi, at my office, it's the other way around. We have more women, less men, so very women-centric.
Yeah.
But I thought that, as part of answering this question, I would talk about my journey a little bit and what made me build my company Kingfish into what it is today. So, when I started off, my first job was in Tanzania. I was in a transport industry. Besides the lady at reception, I was the only other woman in a company that had about 300 people. We had truck drivers, we had, people in operations, maintenance, only women over there. Very intimidating, I must say. And then from there, I moved into advertising and then hotels, again, predominantly like 25 years ago, very male centric, scarce empathy. And wherever there was anything that seemed like empathy or compassion, it was more like pity, because like, oh, it's a woman. So like, we should cut her some slack. And from there, I progressed to the social. I progressed to the social work.
Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I moved into the social work sector where people talk a lot about empathy, but it was very rarely demonstrated towards us, people working for different communities. And I think for me, the turning point, and then of course, primary socialization, right? Like parents didn't show much empathy to us. Like, this is what it is. You have to do this. And so what if you're tired or if you don't like what systems exist at outside or at home? But where I really experienced empathetic leadership or compassionate leadership was at my current organization, where I joined, as the first person in India. And I think I was always taught, or I always saw that if you're being empathetic or compassionate towards somebody, you are going to just be a very soft leader and not have strong business outcomes. But I saw how it was woven in into business practices. And it really created a lot of psychological safety and allowed me to really contribute meaningfully and made me feel connected to the work that I was doing. And it it really reshaped my perspective on leadership and helped me understand, how uh, I can build not just a strong culture, strong values, but also have a strong business impact. Maya Angelou says people will forget what you said and what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And I feel that that is so true for the way my company's founders really built Kingfish and then enabled me to build the same over here in India as well. And we've seen that by, kind of incorporating this vulnerability and this compassion into our culture, we've seen higher engagement, retention. People talk about how valued they feel. And we have people who've been with us for a really long time, and continued and continue to feel very excited on their journey over here. My head of HR is on this call. He comes from a hardcore tech company, and when he joined, he probably thought that everything that we say about our culture is just like a sound good, feel good thing. And when he joined, he would be like, "Really? Like, you want to give this person so many more chances, Leena?" And I was like, "Yes, that's our culture." And initially, I think he was very stumped, as are many people who join us right at the start. But I think everybody really understands the power of including this in your, leadership style. It may take longer sometimes to see results, and you wonder, like, is this? Sometimes I question the approach, but I think that definitely, when I take a step back and look at it, people are so much more invested, and it feels so much more meaningful every day. Everybody's going to go to work, right? All of us have a job to do, but it's how you do it and what's the whole bedrock upon which you do it that really matters. I'll pause here.
So lovely, Leena, right? I mean, I think I resonate with you when you say the soft leadership bit. I think I have been put on a spot very often saying that you're too nice or you're too soft. But the way I would like to change that narrative is saying that all we are doing is we are being humans. We are just being what a person would. And it's about how I would like to be treated. Why can't I treat somebody else like that? There's a huge change which is required over there. And thank you so much for sharing your journey. It is so lovely to hear that different things that you went through. Sunita, now can I bother you to talk about the very, very relevant point that you brought forward and talk more about it?
Yeah, Devangi, thank you. And I'm sorry if I'm being the spoiling the party here. But it is something I think that everybody needs to think about. I think every single person in this group here listening in needs to think about, where do we want to go from here? And how do we go? I mean, many of you all work in very large corporations where you are, if you haven't already got a directive to tone down what you are saying. Sometimes you get a hard directive saying, pull it out if you're working for, some organizations that I will not mention, that you just pull it out of your website, you pull it out of, dismantle teams that are there. But some of y'all may be under pressure as well not to do it. And I know that sometimes I've been, over the last few weeks, I've been, called to give a talk, and then they'll be said, don't use the word DEI. It is showing up. It is not something that is happening only in the United States. It is trickling down here. What do we do about it? And I'm saying, I think as leaders, we've all got to think about it. And there's no prescriptive answer to this. This is a challenge. I think it's a challenge to leadership in general. How do you remain honest? How do you remain vulnerable? How do you hold on to the values that you believe in? Devangi, I'll tell you that what I have been doing really over the last few months is that every time I meet with these cohort of women and the women leadership group that I work with, or any women that I meet, I keep telling them that let's look at what we can do. And I'm just saying, I've lived by that philosophy really all my life. I'm not waiting for, what can my family do? What can the organization do? What can the government do? They all need to do. I'm not saying they don't need to do anything. They must do. But I'm just an impatient soul. I'm not waiting for so long for something to change just because governments take so long. And I want to see what can be done. By myself, how can I bring about the change that I want to see? And really, it's very, very important. I mean, it's almost scary to think that we're one government away from everything that we hold so dear to us being taken away from us. And we've seen that in countries, right? We've seen that what's happened in Afghanistan. We've seen child marriages come back in Iran. I recently did a talk on Melinda Gates' book, The Power of Lift, and we were talking about child marriages. It is real. We're in 2025, and it has come back. It has come back. So, what can we do? Really, I think is for each one of us to look to see who is the person that I can help in my organization, and you can be a person who's a fresher. You can be somebody who's got 5 years of experience, 10 years of experience, 20. But how can I lift one woman, right, in my organization? In whatever way I can. In whatever way I can. And the next thing, not just that, simply because I want to make it slightly larger. It talks about this year's theme is accelerate change. And I want to bring that change, not by just getting all, women here, but help women in the organization and find one person in the margin. Find one woman in the margin, whether it's your house help, whether it is some woman who is starting a business of her own, a small business of her own. Find somebody that you can help lift up as well. And I think if we can do that, we can try and make the change as much as possible without, dealing with all the madness that is happening around us at this point, Devangi.
Yeah, it's so true. And not just us women, I think the men in this group as well. If each one of us pledges that we are going to support and not uplift one person, that whole cyclical change also will be amazing to see, because the person you help will go and help somebody else, and then so on and so forth. And that's how changes happen. One person, one step at a time. Thank you so much, Sunita, for that. I'm actually now, this is a question that I would like to ask all of you, all four of you, and in fact, anybody who would like to share after that from the audience as well, is that, all of you have spent like many, many years doing what you all do, driving impact. But if you could change one thing about how women leaders shape organizations in the next 10 years, what would it be? In short, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And maybe I'll start with Sunita, or actually let's give Sunita a little break, maybe a little bit of water, if she wants to take that. Maybe we start with Susan. Susan, would you like to start over there? And then we can go on to Antra as well.
Thanks, Devangi. I think I want to also cover Mukta's question. She asked a little about after marriage dropout. So I'll have my answer within that, to where she asked about extra nudge with what comes from within us. And I think I got married very late. I was in my early 30s when I got married. So I had a good experience with professional life. So I said, I want to enjoy my married life. So I want to take a break. I think, Devangi, you would know this a little bit, right? So I'd shared this with you as well. So I said, let me enjoy this, because I was feeling so guilty about not giving time to something that I waited for so long. I said, okay, let me just take a clean break. And then, of course, if you work this long, you just cannot stay. And, so I love this question. I think when I was not married, I had all the help. My mother would do everything. I didn't have to do anything at home. And then cut to after 33 years, I had to do everything on my own, not just me, but run a home, etc. It was just too overwhelming. I couldn't do both with the same excellence that I wanted to. So I think what helped me, and Mukta, I hope that answers some of your question internally, was that with my career, as I grew, I realized it's okay to have, like Sunita also touched base, to have these bold conversations, right? I think as women, we don't want to have those conversations. And when I started having those conversations with my manager, where I said, no, I can only do this much because I can only excel when I do this much. And if you give me 3 more tasks to do, I will not be able to do these things. Is this okay? So I go up with a plan. I say, okay, this is what I'll cover in this quarter. These are the results you are looking for. These are your priorities. And I will not take anything more. Also, second thing was being bold. I remember being in a room filled with an IT. It's always the hiring managers were male, the CEO is male, everybody was male, and I was the only one there. And I was the team lead in my recruitment team. And I had a person who was a male colleague, who was a junior who was reporting to me. And still in that meeting, they would say, Susan, can you make sure there are water bottles in the room before we come in? Can you make sure you can take the notes? I did it like for fun first 2 times. And third time I went back to the managing director and said, listen, don't you think why this falls on me? Can't we do like a round robin? Can't somebody else take? So I don't want to be like, oh, because I'm a woman, you're giving me this. I don't want to presume things. So like they say, the unconscious bias, because I will be better at note taking. I just had to like educate them and be like, don't you think we can do a round robin? Wouldn't that achieve certain things? So having these bold conversations where like, no, I was hurt in this conversation because I feel this person spoke very rudely to me. It's okay to go ahead and share, be bold about your conversations. I think that's the legacy. We should have a voice. It should be okay for us to speak up, whether it's a room filled with men or leadership or older people or younger people, it doesn't matter. And I think that will help some of us to leave space for when people who watch us, right? The next generation who are watching us, taking a stand, being vocal. I think that inspires them that it's okay to do that. I feel that a lot of time in tech, women have amazing ideas. We used to run in an agile organization where we used to have stand-ups for 15 minutes, and I'll end with this. But and I used to see women, and we used to take walks as recruitment teams. We wanted to see what each team is doing, where we need to hire. So we would just go and stand in those stand-ups to observe. And it was so funny that women would try to talk, and then this person is, talking very loudly, or they are like, "Arey, you don't know anything. Please keep quiet. Let me finish." And it became like that. And I was just thinking, okay, maybe this person has a good idea, but they are very hesitant. Just by nature, we are a lot more quieter. We are a lot more, way to put in our conversations. And then we had to do like a whole thing of this also became a crush issue, but we had to speak to the person, be like, okay, let everyone get a chance to speak. And I think when they see another woman speaking up, that becomes a precedence of it's okay to share your thoughts in a group of people. So for me, it would be vocal, be bold. Do not hesitate to stand up for yourself and say what you need to do your job well.
Yeah, I think we had a discussion earlier as well that ask for the help that you need, ask for what you want. Unless we don't, nobody's going to give it to us or hand it over to us.
Yeah, and it's not a sign of weakness.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. Absolutely. Antra, you want to add to this one?
Yeah.
One legacy you would leave behind.
Yeah, thanks, Devangi. I love this question, and I think I would like to change the narrative from breaking the glass ceiling that we keep hearing to building new structures. We all spoke about how the traits that we expect in the stereotypical mindset for leadership that needs to change to become more collaboration, empathy, and inclusive decision making. But I feel that this means when we able to create an environment where women feel empowered to lead authentically without being worried or feeling pressurized to conform to the outdated norms. I think that's something that I'd like to, I would like to change. Why it doesn't work today is, much said about unconscious bias. I think we all spoke about it. We spoke about the systemic barriers in the chat as well. I think what you and Niti and also Susan touched upon, I like to bring that to forefront because that is something that we call double bind always, right? I mean, if you are as a woman, if you are perceived as too aggressive, because you are assert, for them, you assert yourself, you consider to be too aggressive. If you're not, you consider to be passive. Yeah. It's so hard to maintain that balance in their mind, in the perception, right? I mean, that double bind is something that is prevalent. I have had so many conversations with my women leader friends. Every time, some who were able to overcome it, in their own way. Some who are still struggling with it, it's a reality. And it's hard. It's hard. And I think this mentorship versus sponsorship is something that I feel that has to change, right? There is mentorship. Of course, there are leadership development programs. They are nicely woven into your career frameworks, everything. But what happens after you've been mentored and you feel that, okay, you're ready to take on the world for them? But is there an active sponsor? Is there one person, a leader, a women leader or a male leader, actively advocating about your growth, promoting you, giving you the right opportunities? I think that's something that needs to change to be able to actually say that, okay, here's inclusivity and the right way. It's not just having seat at the table as given as a handout. So for me, I think it is definitely the narrative needs to shift to building new structures, and this is how I see it.
So beautiful. Yeah. And if we are lucky enough to have a voice on the table, how do we use that voice becomes that much more important. When you talked about the glass ceiling, I recently spoke to somebody I really admire, a male leader, and he said something so beautiful. He said that the glass ceiling that you're seeing is your imagination. The moment you stop imagining it, the sky is the limit. So do you want to start looking at something different? And that so resonates when you say that, can we start, if this is the place where the glass ceiling is not breaking, how about I just move my houses and go to a place which has no ceiling? So that's so beautiful, Antra. Thank you so much. Lina, I'm going to ask you the same question. What is one legacy that you would want to leave behind? You're a mother of a very powerful young girl as well. So I think this makes so much more relevance over there too.
Yeah. My daughter's studying law, and I know somebody talked about technology. I think Mukta spoke about engineering, where there are largely men. My daughter's in a college where there are, I think, 15% men, and the rest are women. So, anyway, in terms of the legacy that I really want to leave behind, I think my approach at my company, and even otherwise when I meet, uh, women in corporate careers, is to help them really understand what they're looking for, because I think that women are getting so many messages, right? Like from home, it's often that, why don't you just quit? Or like, this is how women are supposed to be, not work so hard, for example. Or at the workplace, they're being compared to and pitted against men, so they feel they have to, like, embody this alpha male energy in order to succeed at work. And I think it's important for each woman to really think about, what do I really want, over and above what society is telling me I need to do. And at work, with all my leaders, not just the women, when I have check-ins and one-on-ones, it really starts off with, how are you feeling? What's going on? And what's exciting for you? What do you want to do? And I think when people, especially women, feel like they can share and talk about what's going on for them, and they can clear that out, I think they can be so much more productive. So sometimes it's just a quick cry that they need, or they just, are struggling with a particular issue and they don't know. It's like, this is happening with my partner, or this is happening with my child. And if they can just talk about that for a little bit, it helps them move through the rest of their day. I hope I can leave that legacy behind, where we are seen as humans first entering into the workplace, and then seen as people who are contributing to the business and, getting to whatever success factors we need to in the day. That one, and the second one of understanding that each person is different. We can't have a cookie cutter approach. I had to learn that the hard way, and I think so did my leaders, when we started working with this particular generation, because we're like, what is going on? Why aren't they doing A, B, C? Why don't they appreciate everything that's being given to them? Different generation, different way of thinking. And I see that with my daughter, as I'm sure, Devangi, you see it with yours as well, because they're not like very far apart in age. So really understanding that each person or each generation is different, and we have to keep our values consistent, but change the approach and the lens with which we're looking at each individual. So kind of a little bit of a therapeutic coaching approach towards I think, groups as well as towards individuals. I hope I can leave that behind.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. This generation is far more aware, and I'm so glad about that. It's the same question. What is it that you would want to leave behind?
Sorry, you dropped off for a bit,
Yeah.
Devangi, but I'm presuming the question is for me.
Yes, Sunita. Yeah, my internet decided to just go unstable at that very moment. But yes, the question is for you. What is your legacy?
So, let me say two things that are there, and one is an aspirational, thing that I'd like to see in the world. Really, when I was working for a startup before the big corporation that I was working for before this, at the startup, I had a male CEO, and he was phenomenal in getting women and in treating the women the way he treated them in the organization. There was never a question of, I am being treated this way because I'm a woman. He never said that, okay, I'm doing this for you because you are a woman. It was, he gave all the flexibility, everything that we needed without calling out our gender. And I just think that is so phenomenal. And I think I didn't realize it at that time when I was in the startup. But when I moved to a larger organization where there was policy and there was, KPIs, and we had to do this for diversity. And I thought, my God, we never spoke about it, but we achieved so much. And I think the women felt such a great sense of appreciation of having such a fulfilling career simply because we were accepted for who we were, and on merit. It was on nothing else. So I mean, he was special. And I just think I wish we'd have more organizations like that. I think that would be wonderful, where we didn't have to call this out, where I don't have to worry that, am I a diversity hire? Rubbish that comes up, which just annoys the hell out of me. But that I'm there because I'm good. Yeah, because I'm there on merit, and not for any other reason. So that's one of it. I hope we can see more of in the world. But I'll tell you from my own legacy, what I feel I learned and I have that I have continued to use, because it was such a huge eye opener for me. Susan spoke about, women, sitting at the table, having a voice, being bold. And I know that's what that's what we want women to do. But I want it from the other side as well. As leaders, what can I do for people who are in a meeting and are not bold enough to speak? Where am I including them? And I want to tell you, as a leader, I often made this mistake, right? We'd be at a meeting, and I remember my phenomenal pre-sales team. I just had the best pre-sales team in the world. They were just such a bunch of great kids. They were young, enthusiastic. They spoke their mind, which I loved. Nobody was pandering to me because I was had some fancy title. Spoke it, said it like the way it was. I just loved the meetings that when I was there with them. And they were all men, one woman in pre-sales. And then, we'd have these heated discussions about what needs to be done and things like that. And I'd go ask everybody, so what do you think? What are your ideas on this? And the men would just, each one trying to outdo the other and saying what they had to say. And I'd ask everybody, okay, so that's what it is. And, let's go with this one then. Everybody agrees. And then I'd go to have coffee, and this one girl in my pre-sales team would be there, and I'd tell her, so what do you think? This is a great idea, right? What we're going with. And very quietly, she said, yes, but we could also be doing this, this, and this, and come up with the most phenomenal idea. And I'd be so mad with her that, why did you not say this at the meeting? And then I realized that the onus is on me. I have to be able to bring out those ideas in that meeting. And I realized that this intentionally being inclusive is something that must remain with all of us. Otherwise, we're not being inclusive if we're just doing this. Does anybody have anything to say and think we're being very inclusive? I asked everybody, right? The problem is not with me, it's with the people who are not speaking. But as a leader, I think it's important for us to be intentional about anything that we do, especially when it comes to being inclusive. We need to be able to reach out and we need to be able to pull out. We want those good ideas, right, as leaders. So we need to be able to do that. So that intentionally being inclusive is, to me, I hope, a legacy that I can leave behind.
So lovely, and so true, right? I don't think I want to leave a legacy, but I do want to see a world where we are not having conversations like this. The only conversations we have is how do we make leadership more relevant? How do we make it more outcome focused? And not worry about who's holding that position. Can we become asexual when it comes to actually talking about leadership is the hope that I have from this world. But thank you so much. I do want to, I'm aware of the time being mindful. It's a Saturday for everybody. But there was a question that came up from Mukta, which was especially for Antara. Mukta, do you want to ask it yourself or do you want me to go ahead and ask for you?
Hey, thanks. Actually, Andhra did, reply to that in the
Okay.
chat. Her reply is also wonderful. So actually, maybe Andhra herself can talk about it.
That'll be lovely.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mukta. I feel that's a very powerful question, and just for everybody's knowledge, the question was about, is it about not seeing women who could lead, or was it that the criteria for leadership requires dedicated availability without being away for family? I think it's a very powerful question. No, I don't think so that, it's about defining that the leadership criteria is only revolving around availability. I think that's something that we've spoken about several times in these conversations, that we need to redefine the criteria. We look at leadership as such, not women, or, to Sunita's point that it's a diversity hire. But yeah, look at the leadership criteria that we want to define so that everybody can have the kind of flexibility Susan spoke about and can lead sustainably. Now, to each its own, right? Somebody may need flexibility. Somebody is happy to work 12 hours, 15 hours. That's their job. They like to do it, so they do it passionately. But everybody should have the kind of flexibility that they want, and impact is what matters, I think, over how it's done.
Lovely. Any other questions? If you haven't asked already, or if you'd like to share as well, even that's a lovely start to have this end of the discussion conversation. No? No one. Everybody wants to get back to the Saturday, which I do believe is important. We're talking about balances. Well, this is where the balance starts. I'd like to just bring out that, this has been amazing. The conversation has been great. And like we promised, these are courageous conversations that we need to start bringing into it. Before I actually get into my closing remark, I think I would like to request each one of us to maybe go back today and talk about or think about that one thing that we'd like to change, to see the change as well. The one thing that we'd like to do, take that small step today so that we can see the future tomorrow. It'll be amazing if we can have these conversations with our groups, with our families, with our children, because that's where I think the change will matter the most. Great conversation. Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Yeah.
Once you're done then.
No, I'm going to be going for my closing statement. So all yours, Josh, go ahead.
I definitely like to add on what Sunita was telling, because that's very interesting.
Josh, you'll have to come closer to the mic.
Yeah. Can you hear me all right? Is it better?
Not yet. Can you try it again?
I think it is yours.
Sorry, Josh. It's the same. Can you come a little more closer?
Just give us a second. I'll actually move it to Jabra.
Just bring the mic to Jabra. Is it better now?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So I would like to, talk upon what Sunita was telling, that inclusive leadership or mindful of being inclusive. I also see a lot of women, colleagues or friends, when they address somebody and the bias kicks in for them as well, like it's a he, and then when they address, it's always a he. So that's one thing which also bothers me. If that can be changed, I would definitely love to see having more inclusive pronouns, or for that matter. That was a brilliant point, and I wanted to talk about that. That's something which is very close to my heart.
So lovely, right?
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, when will we start saying they and not he, she, it, whatever pronouns are there today? Can we just move? Everybody is the they. We can just move to that. I think I'd just like to end by saying that my key takeaways are the legacies that we spoke about, which is making that intentional change, being bold, changing our structures, and above all, just having open communication and conversations. We underestimate some very simple things in life rather than that we keep chasing large strategies. Let's just start with something simple, which is bold, courageous conversations. Thank you so much to not just all the panelists, but all of you who joined today and made this so meaningful. I can see the chat really on fire, which shows that everybody was so engaged. Deeply honored. Thank you so much for spending time with us. Have a lovely, lovely Saturday, and we hope to do this soon again. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.